Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Star Wars Celebration is going on right now. They dropped a brand new trailer for the Mandalorian and Grogu movie and a bunch of other footage for a bunch of other things like Ahsoka Season 2, so I'll try to do videos for everything. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. This is just the beginning. There's a bunch of big stuff happening right now. They revealed a bunch of new stuff about what's going on with the future of the Mandalorian in that part of the timeline, in the movies just in general, just because that's what they're focusing on right now. Like, that's leading the charge of Star Wars making it back into theaters. They didn't really get into any Luke Skywalker or address whether or not he's going to show up during any of these movies. We will see how they handle that going forward. Just starting at the beginning of the footage, this is meant to be different from the previous trailer that they released a while ago. I've already done a separate video about that, so I'll link it at the end of this. But in this new trailer, they start with the Imperials inside the AT-AT walkers part of this convoy, and it's meant to be a reference to the beginning of A New Hope, where the Empire and Darth Vader were busting into the Corellian Corvette. This time with Mando busting through the door and then taking down all of these Imperials, just like the Rebels were taken down. You also notice that the warning siren is the same sounding siren from the beginning of A New Hope on the Corvette. There are a lot of original trilogy Easter eggs that they baked into the Mandalorian Grogu trailer and the Ahsoka Season 2 trailer they released. The Ahsoka Season 2 trailer, though, riffed more on the Empire Strikes Back classic trailer back in the day. I will do a completely separate video about that after this. But you notice they're all snow troopers because this is happening on a snowy planet, wherever Mando and Grogu have gone on this particular mission. It's not totally clear why he's taking this walker out if it's part of the mission that was given to him, but we'll talk about that in a second because we go to that footage right after this big takedown here, this big battle that he has. The camera pushes through them as they're preparing for the boarding, then Mando basically cuts through the door just like the Imperials cut through the door during A New Hope, and then just starts taking them out one at a time, eating their blaster shots just because his Beskar armor is very resistant to blaster fire. That's basically how he can solo all these different Imperials in this small space here. Also, most of the weapons that they're using are much larger and designed for much larger range. So Mando just has a huge advantage here in these close quarters. Uses a vibroblade knife, and his flamethrower. Would not be a Mando series or movie if he wasn't using his flamethrower. There were so many memes about that when they started releasing the successive seasons. Like, how many times in how many episodes will he use his flamethrower? Almost every single episode. Love the way they transition this scene too, with the lieutenant or the commander basically closing the door and then breathing this heavy sigh of relief, like, oh, I've cut him off, like he's not going to get me. Cut to Mando and Grogu flying away with him in his arms, which is also reminds you of Season 2, where they basically had the same pose flying around, with the AT-AT walker exploding and falling off of that cliff face as part of that convoy. Meaning that Mando basically placed a whole bunch of charges and then took off from the AT-AT walker. Not totally clear if his mission was all about taking out this convoy, or it is just some side part of what was going on during a larger mission. Just because right after this, you actually see him back on a Delphi base with Sigourney Weaver's character, who might be a colonel or a general. It's not clear, like you can't see the entire insignia, but she's meant to be in charge of the Adelphi Rangers on this base here that we saw during the end of The Mandalorian Season 3. If you remember, at the end of Season 3, he was talking to Carson Teva about basically working for the Adelphi Rangers, so he's been doing a lot of bounty hunting work with Grogu going along with him, learning the ropes, teaching Grogu the ropes. And they've been paying him for his work, which is why she later says, you don't work for them, you work for us. Meaning that he doesn't work for the Mandalorians, he works for Adelphi Rangers. But he himself is not an Adelphi Ranger like the rest of them. They're the New Republic. He's not part of the New Republic. She jokes about it being sloppy, and then there's this funny moment with Grogu trying to steal the snacks and her stopping him from doing it and giving him that look, like the stare, like she's not taking any of Grogu's crap. You could just sense that Grogu has now made her an enemy for life, like, how dare you stop me from my snacks. We don't know a whole bunch about her character, only that she's also still a pilot, because later we actually see some scenes that they showed off with her in full pilot's gear. I think the idea that all the members here, no matter how old they are or how senior their rank is, all the people that are part of a Delphi base here are pilots still in some way. But in the other trailer footage they released, you actually see Mando on this snowy planet busting into the office where this meeting is going on, killing a whole bunch of people, and then they escape in the AT-PT all-terrain personal terrain walker, like the little tiny one, running down the snowy mountain and encountering the AT-AT convoy coming up on them, firing on them.
Ready to engage!
Then the idea is this scene of him busting onto the AT-AT walker and taking it down is meant to happen right after that. So that's why I say that him taking down the walker might not be the entire mission, it might just be part of his escape from what's happening during the larger mission that he's on. But they didn't reference what this actual particular mission is. I think it's just meant to be a smaller part of the movie, like some point earlier in the film. Because the actual big storyline that they're teasing is that Sigourney Weaver's character will task Mando with saving Rada the Hutt, the son of Jabba the Hutt, we actually saw during the Clone Wars movie that started off the original series back in the day. Technically, it was like the first couple of episodes of the Clone Wars just jammed together in a movie format, but most of you probably remember that. We have not seen Rada the Hutt since those initial episodes of the Clone Wars, that's like the last time you actually see the character. He's going to be played by Jeremy Allen White, who most of you probably recognize from The Bear. Amazing series. If you haven't seen it, it also stars Ebon Moss-Bachrach, who's playing the Thing over in the Marvel Universe in that new Fantastic Four movie. There's the little tag scene at the end of this new trailer where you actually see the Hutt raise its arms up in the gladiator pit. That's meant to be his Rada the Hutt character in present day after the events of Return of the Jedi. So Rada the Hutt is like the super swole Hutt. That's the big twist, that unlike his father, who'd grown very, very fat and decadent, Rada has turned the tragedy of his youth, like the PTSD of being captured by the Separatists in Asajj Ventress, and it's driven him to get super hardcore, like he's a gladiator now in present day. But it's not totally clear why Mando has to rescue him during the movie. Maybe it has something to do with the Shadow Council or Thrawn, and it might be some similar reference to those original Clone Wars episodes that featured him, where the whole idea is that the Separatists, through Count Dooku, as part of a larger plot, was trying to compel the Hutts, Jabba the Hutt, in the Hutt Syndicate, to support the Separatists over the Republic. So basically, Count Dooku had Asajj Ventress steal Rada the Hutt from Jabba, and they were going to try and blackmail him into supporting the Separatists. A very young Ahsoka and Anakin rescued him, brought him back to Jabba, and that's why Jabba and the Hutts wound up supporting the Republic over the Separatists. I am sure they will address what's happened in the time since that, as he grew up, what his relationship with his father Jabba was like all the way through the events of the original trilogy. What was Rada the Hutt doing during the events of the original trilogy? Probably getting super swole, just becoming super hardcore here. We see Mando and Grogu on a new version of the Razor Crest. It could just be another version of a ship just like the Razor Crest, because the original Razor Crest was basically vaporized. Going back to Navarro, but the whole thing here, you see them walking through the streets, is that Carl Weathers, who played Greef Karga, passed away in February 2024 before they started filming the movie, so unless they included some archive footage of him that they already had deleted scenes from previous seasons that they hadn't used yet, Carl Weathers probably isn't going to show up as Greef Karga during this. We will see how they wind up explaining that during the movie. But you remember, during the events of Season 3, Greef Karga basically gave the Mandalorians space to actually live on Navarro, so a bunch of those Mandalorians are just living here, which is probably why he's going back here. This scene of Sigourney Weaver saying, "You work for us," seems like it's still on Adelphi base. You actually see his Razor Crest behind him here. We see Zeb coming back, walking with him and Grogu, R5 with these BDX droids behind it. Those are brand new droids, they actually showing up in Galaxy's Edge right now too. One of the other cool side notes is that Dave Filoni said that Zeb will actually cross over to Ahsoka Season 2, the way that during Season 1 people are like, where's Zeb? Why isn't Zeb in the series now? We just saw him during The Mandalorian Season 3. Shouldn't he be on Ahsoka with the rest of the Ghost crew? Not totally sure what's going on here with him just looking through the wreckage of this ship. He sees what looks like the remnants of an IG droid, but it's not IG-11 because remember, they repurposed his body into Grogu's mech and that was destroyed during the events of The Mandalorian Season 3. Not totally clear where this bar is that he's in, but he just winds up taking out a whole bunch of these people. There are a couple other clips of him also just standing in the bar at the bar, just chilling out. We get a scene of Grogu swimming underwater. It just seems like they used the opportunity during the movie to have Grogu doing a lot of things that we haven't seen him doing before. So if you ever wondered what it looked like when Yoda was swimming, now we're going to see Grogu doing that. This is them back on that snowy planet. This is where he takes out that AT-AT walker. All this footage of him on the AT-PT walker is right before he climbs up into that walker and then takes it down. And they wind up ending the trailer with that funny scene of Grogu taking out the mouse droid with the Force, just completely dismantling it. We also get a little bit of voiceover, if you can call it that, from Grogu, like he's speaking. It seems like he's cheering here when he takes down the Mouser droid, like, aha, take that. And they end the trailer with that funny tag scene of Grogu and Mando watching Rada the Hutt in that gladiator pit. Notice that Grogu also eating the snacks, like he's at the movies eating some popcorn. That's sort of like the running joke with Grogu, is like every scene that he's in, like everywhere they go, he's always stuffing his face with some kind of food. When it says the movie's coming out May 2026, remember that's also the same month that Marvel is releasing Avengers Doomsday. So I think the idea, and they're also doing this the next year after that in 2027 May for the Star Wars Starfighter movie that Ryan Gosling and Sean Levy are making, where they're releasing the Marvel movie like in 2027 it's going to be Avengers Secret Wars, but they're releasing that at the beginning of May, and then they're releasing the Star Wars movie, in this case The Mandalorian Grogu in 2026, at the end of May. Basically, the idea is that Disney, through Marvel and Star Wars, wants to control all of the movie ticket sales in May for like the next couple of years. Some of the other big questions that people were raising at the panel for this, though, are that will Mando take his helmet off during the events of the movie, because that was a big plot point during The Mandalorian Season 3, with him regaining his honor, basically going back to not taking his helmet off. Pedro Pascal posted this high-quality image of him in his Beskar armor with the helmet off, so that's why people are like, are you going to do this during the actual movie, or is this just for the promos? We will see how they handle that, but the idea is that not a ton of time has gone by since the end of The Mandalorian Season 3. And remember, all these different stories are meant to build up in the Thrawn crossover movie, which won't happen till after the events of Ahsoka Season 2. So I think the idea, like the progression here, is that we get the events of the Mandalorian Grogu movie, Ahsoka Season 2 takes place a little bit after that in the timeline. I'll try to do my video for that trailer tomorrow, just because it's a completely different plotline. You have what's going on in the other galaxy, all the stuff with the new recast version of Baylan Skoll, and all the Thrawn stuff. Then after that, it sounds like instead of doing Ahsoka Season 3, they're just going straight to the Thrawn movie, assuming that everything works out with all the Star Wars movie plans that they have right now, at least in this Mando part of the timeline.
Roy's a big man with a big heart, and he has such respect for Rey and what Rey brought to this.
Jon Favreau did not say whether or not he will go back to doing The Mandalorian Season 4 after this Mandalorian Grogu movie. My assumption is that if the movie does really well, instead of doing The Mandalorian Season 4, they'll just do a sequel to The Mandalorian Grogu movie. Like, we'll just do more Mando and Grogu movies. Part of the reason they did that is because basically Jon Favreau had already written The Mandalorian Season 4 and he was about to start filming when the Star Wars people decided to pivot back to movies. Like, we need to get asses back in theaters. How are we going to do that? Why don't we put our most popular characters in the movies, and people will have to go to the movies in order to see more of them? So the very short-term, very quick, last-minute kind of way of doing that is basically turning The Mandalorian Season 4 into The Mandalorian Grogu movie. The stuff that's happening during the movie was essentially what they were going to do during The Mandalorian Season 4 when it was a series. There's a bunch of stuff going on right now, a bunch of Star Wars trailers that just dropped, a bunch of Marvel trailers. I've tried to do videos for everything. My Ahsoka Season 2 trailer video will post next. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Of course, Hayden Christensen crashed the Ahsoka Season 2 panel to announce that he was coming back for Season 2. This is where the fun begins. Everybody click here for that video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for my brand new Fantastic Four trailer video, Pedro Pascal into the Pascalverse. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.